If you read the page that got you here, then you're the right person to hear this. There's a question that you need to ask yourself that you don't need to do anything, but if you want to improve your life, improve your quality of life, get to the part on the inside that is a scrambled dumpster fire of a train wreck mess, which most of us are living with. You know, on the outside, it looks great for a lot of people, especially on social media. It's like highlight reel after highlight reel. But inside, man, I know there's a lot of people that are really hurting and really struggling. And they're not living how they want to live. Mainly, they're not feeling the way they want to feel in life, which makes it so you can't live how you want to live. But it just comes down to one really potent question that I asked myself a long time ago out of force. You know, it wasn't really a choice for me at the time. And I'll tell you that. I'll summarize it because it's a very long story. But when I was 12, I started doing drugs and alcohol and went through a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I grew up in a hostile environment. There was a lot of abuse, poverty, neglect, addiction, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, all the abuses. And you know, I found an escape from that pain with drugs and alcohol, and it worked. It worked really well until it didn't. And then when I was 16, 3 months before my 17th birthday, I checked myself into a rehab. I'm not going to go into the drama of that story, but I got myself into a rehab, went through their program, got out, got sober, stayed sober, did all the meetings, did all the aftercare, did all the counseling, did all the sponsors, did all the things in AA and NA that they recommend you do for a couple of years. And then I realized one day, I'm like, you know what, this is not a place that's really conducive for growth for me. It was a great stepping stone. It was a great support system to get out of that life and that mindset into a beginning of a new one. But the journey hadn't really begun yet, because after being sober for about 2 years, not a lot changed in my life. You know, inside and the way I thought about myself, I still was ruminating on this programming that I got from my dad about how I was just a piece of shit, a loser, a fuck up, worthless, stupid, ugly, never amount to shit. Shouldn't even be breathing the same oxygen as other people. It was pretty hardcore sometimes. But I still believe that, you know, nothing really changed there. And so I went into a meeting one day and I just kind of looked around. I'm like, everybody just comes in here and bitches about life and smokes 12 packs of cigarettes and drinks 25 pots of coffee. And this is 3-4 nights of their week every night. And I'm like, nah, there's more than this, you know? So I left, and they told me when I left, you're going to die, you're going to be in jail, you're going to whatever. And the funny thing is I'm the only person out of that crew of people that stayed sober. So I don't know if obviously I made the right decision. But what led me to the point that I was at is I stopped going to these meetings, and I stopped having those people around me, and I got kind of isolated. And then the only people I trusted betrayed me, my counselor and my girlfriend, and you can imagine where that went and what they did that kind of betrayed me, and I was kind of left with nothing and no one. I made a decision at that point in my life when I went to rehab. I would not go back to drugs and alcohol to escape my pain, because frankly it just stopped working. It just caused more. So I was sitting there in a room. I was kind of just tossing around from room to room, to place, kind of trying to find a place to stay, kind of a vagabond type of lifestyle. Because in terms of labeling what I was at the time, I was still pretty much kind of a loser. So I didn't really have much in my life yet. And long story as short as possible, my friends came over to get me to go hang out, and I said no, I don't want to go. And I went up to the master bedroom where the people that were house sitting, my friends where I lived, were avid hunters, and there was lots of guns and stuff. And I sat on this bed, and I looked under the bed, and, you know, and there was a .357 Magnum under the bed. And the way I saw under the bed was I was just distraught. I was just torn up. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I was confused. I was alone. I didn't know what to do. I was just completely in this emotional and chemical vortex of chaos. And I put my knees on, or my knees, I put my knees on my hands, I put my elbows on my knees and my face in my hands, and I just started bawling because I didn't know what to do. I was just 18 years old. I was scared. I had no one to call. All my friends had relapsed. I didn't want to go back into that environment. I knew it wasn't where I wanted to be or what I needed. But I also didn't have any place else to go. And so at that point in time, I'm thinking back through my life, and I'm thinking about all of the things that I believed and was taught about myself, and all of it none of it was true, but I believed it. And so as I started to go through my life and get to the point where I was at right then, I'm like, man, I'm there. My dad was right. I am. I'm not worth shit. I'm worthless. I'm stupid. I'm all this stuff, and I'm believing this while I'm in the worst emotional pain I've ever been in my life. So I reached under the bed and I grabbed this gun, and I looked at this gun and I thought, if this is life, I want my money back. I mean, this is, I don't, why would anybody want to live this way for another 50, 60, 70 years, 70 minutes, 50 minutes, 50 seconds? It's stupid. This is just nothing but pain and struggle and torture and hell. I don't want to live like this anymore. And so I pulled the hammer back on the gun, put the gun in my mouth, and I'm shaking and I'm trembling, and I'm not telling the whole story because I'll probably get emotional doing it. This is posted somewhere if you want to watch the whole thing. It's pretty inspiring, pretty traumatic, pretty dramatic. It's pretty intense. But I got this gun in my mouth, and I'm thinking to myself, like, if you pull the trigger, someone's going to have to clean up your brains off the back of that wall. Man, your dad was right. You're a piece of shit. And so my eyes are clenched, and I'm tears, there's snot, there's sweat coming everywhere. I'm shaking, trembling. I got a goddamn loaded gun in my mouth with the hammer pulled back and my finger on the trigger. And I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to do this. I don't know if I can do this. This is like crazy, and I'm sitting there squeezing just gently. I look up at the door, and I'm just like begging, somebody please walk in here. Somebody come in here and tell me it'll be okay. And I'm waiting for this mystery person to come in and save me, and no one did, obviously, but I'm squeezing that trigger, and then click, and I pulled the trigger, and the hammer dropped on the gun. And I'm just like, I pulled the gun out, and I'm like, I dropped it. I feel the back of my head. I'm like, am I dead? I don't know. I've never been dead before. I don't know what's happening. And then I looked at the gun again, and I realized like the bullet was defective. I looked at it later, and the primer, the thing that ignites the gunpowder, the primer on the bullet was defective and didn't fire. So I scurried away from it, and I rustled back away from this gun, terrified, and I hit my head on the wall. And I'm like, now my head hurts. To me, that's funny. I don't know why. But when I stopped shaking so bad, I'm shaking right now telling the story, but when I stopped shaking enough to stand on my feet, I just got up and I walked, and I walked, and I walked, and I walked. And I lived in some shitty ghetto place, and I was walking around. I ended up in this little field, looked by the highway, and there was one of those billboards, and they had the old incandescent lights that just kind of like shone up onto the billboard, and they got all dirty and crusty. No one maintained anything around there. It was just a shithole. And it was all dirty and crusty, and it was glowing this orange light. I don't know what significant orange has, if any, but that light captured my attention, and it gave me something to focus on. It gave me a focal point, and I was just like, I looked at this light, and I'm like, okay, Mike. So I started looking around at nothing. I'm in the shithole ghetto, but I'm looking around. But in my mind, I'm looking, and I'm like, there's people out there, Mike, in this world that have what you want. There's people out there that have love, that have money, that have success, that have toys, that have family. That was my biggest dream, is to have a family, a loving, caring family. I'm like, it's out there. Maybe you got dealt a bad hand, maybe something, but you know what, man? If it's out there, you can get it. And so I literally took a physical step to the side, and I looked over at the echo of the person that I was, and I looked over and I said, you just killed that man, the man that pulled the trigger and gave birth to this guy. Who is he? I don't know. I'm the same jackass I was 5 seconds ago, but I'm going to go in this world, and I'm going to figure out how this works, how all this shit works, and I'm going to go out there and get what I want in my life. I'm going to transform my life. I don't know how. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I have no idea. All I know is I'm on borrowed time now, so everything I do is going to be a plus. It's going to be a win. And so I just started my journey at that point. And I started to learn. I started to become really hyper self-aware, and I didn't know there were people like me, people like an industry, a whole industry that taught this kind of stuff. I would just piece it together by trying stuff and doing stuff, and this worked and that didn't work, and this worked and that didn't work. This put me this place, that put me that place, and I just collected all of these things that eventually formed into the Power Life Principles. And the biggest thing that, and through doing that, I did transform my life completely. I mean, I'm a number one best-selling author. I've spoken all around the world. I've spoken on big, huge, intimidating stages that are like built for Phantom of the Opera. All these like curtains, and there's a crew, and there's camera people and mic people, and I'm like, what's going on here, man? They just kick you out on the stage, and these stages, you're huge. You're a tiny little ant on this giant stage. It's a little bit intimidating, But I've done all that. I've done. I raised a family. I built a beautiful. My biggest dream came true. I built a beautiful family with two beautiful daughters. I have a beautiful granddaughter now. And, I've helped thousands of people all around the world, and I've done all kinds of cool stuff. I've made millions of dollars. I've spent millions of dollars. I've I've lost a bunch of weight. I've gotten all kinds of awards, all kinds of shit, right? Which is great. But this isn't about me. The biggest thing is like what happened when I started to teach this stuff and started to help people with this is their lives changed too. Not just changed, their lives excelled. Like Brian went from, a suicidal, depressed, alcoholic, overweight, miserable, and just this beautiful man that's trapped inside this shit show of a mind and of a heart that didn't know how to get this beauty out and this power out, and we helped him. Now he's in a loving relationship, got out of a toxic marriage, lost a bunch of weight, sober, happy, beaming like a little kid, multi-million-dollar business, just doing so well. And there's tons of these stories for people like this. It's because what we do works. But the biggest thing, the catalyst for all of this is one question. One question you have to ask yourself. Are you ready to take the first step? Because that step to the side, that is the first step. It's not the planning or the thinking or the feeling or the doing this, or none of that. It's the actual step, the decision. And it's backed by, in my case, it was a simple action of taking one step to the side, saying, that guy's dead. And I was willing to let that guy die. And that guy didn't want to die. He fought. Believe me, he put up a good battle. But in the end, victory is mine. The other guy won. Why? Because highest energy wins, because duality, because the power of perspectives, because attraction, because the power life principles. That's how this guy won. That's how everybody wins. But I was willing to let that person die, let that version of me go and create a new version. Completely terrified, had no idea, no support, no help. I was literally in the trenches of life, poking sticks at shit, lifting things up. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on here, but I figured it out. And over time, I developed in these principles. I mean, that's the beautiful thing is that the base of this, it's not a philosophy. It's not anything that I invented or created. I just distilled this stuff down to nature's core elements. Nature's the most elemental version of this stuff is principle based. Highest energy wins, principle one. You can't dispute that. It's not a philosophy. It's physics. And so all of it's like that. But the biggest question you have to ask yourself is, are you ready to take that step? Because if you're not, don't even try. You're just going to end up proving yourself right that you can't do it, that you're not able, not worthy, all this bullshit going on in your head. You're going to prove yourself right again and again and again, unless you're ready to take that step. And it's a big step. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of bravery. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes dedication. And I know how scary it is. Believe me, I know how scary it is because I've done it. I've done it more than that one time, but that was the biggest one, where it's like you have to be willing to let that person that you were die. And that's scary because you know that person. You know how to survive. You know how to get by. You know how to navigate life with that. Even if you're unhappy, you still know how to navigate life. When you're out, lost at sea with no map, no compass, and you go, okay, well, I'm just going to go this way and leave this path that I know before that leads me into hell every time I go down it. It doesn't matter. It's scary. But if you're ready, if you are ready to take that step, not wait for someone to do it for you. I said on here, no one's coming to save you. They say that all the time. Well, that's bullshit. We're here. We're here to help. But no one can come save you if you're not willing to save yourself. Nobody can help you if you're not willing to help yourself. If you're looking for something where you don't have to do anything, you don't have to do the work, you don't have to conjure up this courage and face your fears and face your demons and all this stuff, then it's nothing's going to work for you ever. You can keep chasing the hacks and the shortcuts and the whatever, and all you're going to do is just waste more time in your life and waste more energy and be more discouraged. And you're going to put on a happy face sticker for the world. I'm doing great. I'm fine. And maybe on the outside you are, but on the inside, maybe you're not. And there's so much more to life. There's so much more beauty. There's so much more just wonder and fascination and awe. There's so much you can have. And you know that. If you're this person, you know that. You know it's in there, but it's like, oh, why can't I get it? Well, we're going to help you get it. But only if you're ready to take the first step. The first step, take that step to the side and say, I'm willing to let that person go. I'm willing to let that person die. That person served you for whatever your life may have been. They have protected you. They've guided you. They've kept you safe. They've kept you from going crazy, or maybe they made you crazy a little bit, that you needed to be crazy sometimes. Whatever it is, they served you. But if you're ready for a change, if you're ready to move into a different direction and commit to your life and commit to yourself, then you must be willing to let that person die. That's the first step. So I encourage you, if you are ready, to join us, because it's not something that you're familiar with. If maybe you've tried everything, you've read every book, you have all the knowledge, you have all this beautiful knowledge that doesn't really do anything except for it pacifies your curiosity or whatever, but you haven't actually applied the Power Life principles and processes in your life. It's not about some weird dopamine hit self-help thing. This is about really improving your life. This is about changing, transforming, becoming the best you can be. Systematically, in a successive progression. You don't just snap your fingers and you're the best you can be all of a sudden. It's a journey, it's a progression, and it's fun. Not always. Sometimes it's like, what the fuck am I doing? Sometimes it's not fun. I mean, we all know that. Let's just be real. I'm not going to bullshit anybody. Sometimes it's tough, but that's when you need support the most. And in the Power Life principles, the Power Life ecosystem, you're going to find that support and that guidance that you need, and the processes and principles. And they're simple. They're so simple we can all wrap our heads around them and apply them in our life. But you got to be willing to take that first step. So your journey is about to expand and explode and extrapolate, and your power is going to be just amplified more and more and more until you don't have a choice but to see it and live from it. So the question is, are you ready to take the first step? One step to the side. It's not a big thing. It's not some huge, it's a momentous thing. It's a symbolic thing, but it's not some huge task you have to do. Just one decision. That's all it is. One decision. Change your life for the rest of your life forever.